All right, approval of consent agenda. Well, actually, new remarks by newly elected town council. I did skip earlier. Does anyone like to make a remark?
I would.
All right, Joe.
Well, I promised the people that voted for me that if I was elected, I would jump right into it and try to get the ball rolling a little bit as far as what's the issues in town that people have been complaining me about. I'm making that scratch.
That's good.
Some of the bigger issues that people had spoke out to me about were the lawsuits in town and some of the things we've been reading in the newspaper. It appears that the town took a pretty good-sized loss on the lawsuit with Tiger Tree, and it came to my attention that we probably should have pursued some sort of action to make the town whole. Like doctors, lawyers are also required to carry insurance. And in the event of a mistake, a claim can be put in. So one of the first priorities that will be on my agenda will be to find out if we are eligible for damages. That's, in a nutshell, will be the first item on my agenda, and I'm hoping that fellow councilors will see that the town needs to be made whole in this issue, and that we can perhaps get this on the next agenda. In fact, I would even be requesting that we get this on the next agenda for discussion to see if perhaps we need to obtain special counsel to investigate this to see are we in fact eligible to file a claim and be reimbursed for the amount of money that was proposed to be lost. That's about it. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I want to thank everyone who voted for me this past election. And for those of you who didn't, I'll give you the opportunity again in 2 years. So I'll be back, and I'm not even left yet. I'd like to thank my wife for her support. I know she's left already. She has nothing to do with politics. She probably wouldn't even know who the president is. So, again, I'd just like to thank everyone, especially Miss Sally Black. She was out there pounding the streets with me on Saturdays in the rain and all different times.
Trooper.
So, thanks, Sally. And hopefully, we're going to do the work of the town, and that's what we've been put here for.
Anyone else? I'd just like to thank everyone who supported me and thank my council for supporting me for president. I also would like to thank Sally Black because she was on every street corner with us. And yeah, it doesn't sound good, but we were there. And I just hope that we can all work together well and get the things done that we need to. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Approval of consent agenda. Receipt of minutes from the following boards and commissions: Art Council, Cemetery Commission, and Planning Board 2. Correspondence. Rhode Island State Planning Council notice of public hearing regarding solid waste, 2038. Approval of tax assessor abatements. Approval of petition by Verizon New England Incorporated and Narragansett Electric Company for one new joint pole, P4, on the northeasterly side of Beach Avenue for the purpose of removing existing pole from the center of the driveway of number 42 Beach Avenue. Response from Stephen Bellucci, DPD Director, and copy of town stipulations required for approval. Town Administrator distribution of monthly overtime reports for October 2014. Town Administrator distribution of department monthly reports October 2014. Treasurer Denise Surratt distribution of budget and revenue reports October 2014. Would anybody like to take anything from the consent agenda? I would like to take CA5.
CA 2A, please.
Anything else? I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion's been made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
CA2 correspondence, Rhode Island State Planning Council notice of public hearings regarding solid waste 2038.
I only have one question on this. I just want to make sure that we have, we have any representation going to one of these meetings from our landfill committee.
I'm looking for the director, but absolutely we will. I mean, it's just too important not to.
I would also like to recommend someone from the Conservation Committee attend.
CA5, that would be me, Town Administrator, distribution of monthly overtime report for 2014, October. Specifically, the Tiverton Fire Department report, and I think you all have it. For the month of November, we have reached, if you take out the fire prevention hours, it is $41,000 for overtime just for the month of November. Now, if you go to Denise's total expense but business activity, so far, with this $40,000, we have spent, well, the best way to put it is we have $40,000 left in the overtime, and it's been 4 months. And I don't know where we're going to get the rest of the money, because if you do your math, you'll need about $400,000 if we go for the rate that we're going now. I would like to address this with the town administrator and the fire department to see where we're going to be getting these funds from.
First of all, I want to make it abundantly clear that the run rate for overtime in the fire department is unsustainable and unacceptable. The fire department's report is of great benefit to the town because it breaks out the detailed reasons or the shifts that are being missed that require a callback for an overtime shift to replace it. We have 2 firefighters who are out injured on duty. Now, under the contract, what that means is they get paid straight time and they are not let go. So when we come to their shifts, we are still paying these firefighters even though they are not present to man equipment and be part of what really counts for minimum manning. If you look carefully at the overtime report, that explains a little bit more than 40% of the demand for overtime in the town, in the town's fire department. We have probably one strong possibility for changing that state of affairs and getting that much of it under control, which has been the town administrator and the fire chief requesting and supporting every effort made by those 2 firefighters to move themselves onto a disability pension. Once they leave the employ of the fire department, we would be able to backfill those 2 spaces, and we would no longer be generating this number of hours of overtime demand. The only other immediate thought to expediting that process is to have a hiring list fully ready so that when those individuals separate from the town, that they would immediately be backfilled. And I personally think it's reasonable to suggest, and I have not publicly or privately communicated this to the fire union yet, but I will now, which is we would actually save money by having those probies already working and ready to take those 2 spots. I can understand the union's reluctance to immediately accept that because it starts to look like a temporary employee, and there's no guarantee that those individuals would be certified for the disability pension. But I'm going to ask and cajole, beg if we have to, because it's a lot of money. And lastly, what most people This is a really Byzantine or somewhat obscure area of the law and of benefit claims. So a disability pension isn't simply awarded because somebody asks for it. There are a series of independent medical exams that occur, and there's the paperwork and the hearing process that goes through a disability subcommittee of the State Retirement Board. I've already reached out to one member of that committee and urged that as soon as the independent medical examiners have been assigned and the reports come back, that what my request has been that the Tiverton firefighters rise to the top of the inbox, because what they're doing to us, this disturbance in our ability to staff our department, is taking place against the backdrop of virtually no budget flexibility whatsoever. Nothing in government moves as quickly as we want it to. So we will go as quickly as we can, and I will update the council regularly when it's appropriate in public for those matters that may be a little bit more sensitive and relate to somebody's privacy. We'll have those updates in executive session. But that is the path we've plotted forward, and right now seems to be moving in the direction we want it to be.
Do we have openings now, or are all the openings filled?
I think we're full. But we're also at the bottom of the list, correct? We've used our whole list.
All positions are filled. One is still in training, should be done at the end of this month. I have one out on family medical leave, the 2 firefighters that we're talking about, and currently there are 3 people still left on the list. However, I know that East Providence is going to hire, Providence is going to hire again, depending on what happens in North Kingstown, and that's what happens every time we get down the list. They start robbing them, but I do think we should move forward and get a list created, build out on the list we currently have.
Well, I am requesting that we have some kind of plan, because obviously we're not going to find $400,000 in this budget. So at the next meeting, maybe we can discuss it again. I would imagine some would come from your budget. You'd have to try to find the money, and I know you can't. I know. But we just can't continue on this path, because we'll have to do something drastic, like closing a fire barn, or to try to, and I'm not suggesting we do that, but it's at the point where we are not going to maintain the expense we have right now.
The problem being that there is, in the collective bargaining agreement that was signed, there is a certain number of people that have to be on duty. I have no choice in that. I have to have those people on duty because that's in the collective bargaining. Now, if somebody wants to tell me to void the collective bargaining agreement, I'd be more than glad to do that. But that's where the problem comes, that there aren't enough bodies to fill the positions, and I have to maintain them. If we close the station, that doesn't make a difference. I still have to have a certain number of people on duty.
Well, I think when the town administrator needs to brainstorm and try to figure this out. Joe?
Is that new language that came in with a recent contract? Because we've closed stations in the past when we ran into financial difficulty. We would close Crandall Road. The chief at the time figured out when that station was, I guess there were times when that station was, idle, and, there were times it was busy, I guess. So what we did was we closed that station part-time and saved a lot of money. And so it seems to me if the station's closed, you don't need the staff.
Well, I think what the chief is saying is, no matter how many stations we have to
I don't
have
think that's true.
the
It
collective.
absolutely is true. Since 2007, there's an 8-man shift with a 7-man minimum. That is in the collective bargaining agreement.
I'd like that to be researched, and my point, I'd like to finish my point, please, because sitting on the budget committee last year, I had made the recommendation to the council and the town administrator that we put in place a plan at the beginning of the year so we wouldn't be at this point. So I'm a little bit irritated that we're sitting here talking about being out of money again.
Well, that's why I thought,
There were other recommendations that were made that would have, one was another, to end the fire inspections and turn it back to the state fire inspectors. The state mandates that those inspections are done. Perhaps we should allow the state to pay to have the inspection, let them hire the inspector.
Madam President, note my objection. We're well beyond the purview of a consent agenda at this point. If this is an issue to be discussed on the merits, it should be listed as an agenda item. We shouldn't.
and that's what I'm asking.
Going well. This is more than discussion. We're simply it's one thing to discuss the fact that we have overtime, but to actually come up with a plan tonight is beyond the
I
consent
suggested
agenda.
that the plan was done at the beginning of the fiscal year, so we didn't get to this point. That's why I'm upset.
But at this point, Joe, it is what it is. It is what it is, and what I'm asking, if it's okay with the rest of the council, is that the fire chief and the town administrator get together and try to create a plan, and I think we need to know the overtime expense every meeting from now on, so we can kind of keep track of it. But we do need a plan, because we are not going to be able to sustain this expense.
Madam President, when did you want that? You wanted that every week? Or what was it? You just-
I'd like to see what, so every 2 weeks I need,
Okay,
I feel
just
we
wanna
need to know the overtime. And maybe we can come back either the next meeting or the meeting after with the plan.
Madam President, if I may, there are steps that have been taken in other jurisdictions. We don't close a station. We've run out a piece of equipment. And we say, I'm not going to run my truck anymore. It's a violation of, but it's been done. It goes to arbitration, and it ends up being on the table as something that gets discussed in collective bargaining if it happens to be contemporaneous, which here in town it is. There are positives and negatives associated with a strategy like that we're better off discussing with Labor Council present. It's a very significant move. But it's available to you, but it does what you want to accomplish by closing the station. So you asked, is there a way to do it? And my answer is yes, that.
I'm just saying that the firefighters I met in this town, and I've spoken with several of them, and they seem like hard-working, honest people, and I think they'll come to the table if we're in a pinch. You know, and I'll also say, just one other point, and I just watched all of those firefighters in Fall River get laid off. All those available bodies that I thought could have just came right into this town and filled the slots. And then I find out that bureaucracy, regulations, rules, whatever you, got in the way of us being able to hire qualified people from another state. And I just find it outrageous, and I think it's just going too far. We should have been able to take some of those firefighters from Fall River that are already trained and bring them into our force.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve CA2 and CA5.
I move that we receive and file CA2A and CA5.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Open public forum, I do not have the paper.
Oh, I'm sorry.
John Martin, Budget Committee vacancy.
Good evening. My name is John Lawton. I recently ran for the Tiverton Budget Committee. I placed sixth and would be the next candidate in line for appointment to the position vacated by Mr. Perry's election. I'm ready, willing, and able to serve and would like to state my intentions to that effect. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council.
No, we really can't ask any questions.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Leslie, Fire Department.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Poldva. I live at 1 Mill Street, apartment 1423 in Tiverton. I'm the former town sergeant. What I'd like to talk about is the fire department. I would like to give them a great thanks for their job this past weekend. My mother, who is 88 years old, she passed out and she broke her tibia in her leg, and she was out on the floor. I called 911. They responded very, very quickly. We have the best fire department in the state, as far as I'm concerned. I was very upset. They took care of me emotionally. They took care of my autistic grandson. They kept me from being hysterical because I actually thought she died. I would like to thank Adam Cabral, William Barrett, who are R2s, Anthony Moriarty, Tom Mello, who are E3s, and Acting Lieutenant Peter Manchester, who's a C3. We should be all proud of them. We have an ambulance who have paramedics on them, who they know what they're doing. We don't have just EMTs. They set up an IV in my mother because she also had problems with her heart on the way. So I would thank, from the bottom of my heart, the Tiverton Fire Department and also Chief Lloyd for the great work he's been doing, and also for all the training that's been done. I don't know if people on this council know that they train every single week. They train on the Bourne Mill property. I watch them go in, out, and I think this new town council should turn around and do something with this budget and help this department and stop creating problems and investigations and work together. That also goes for the police department and the wonderful work they do. Thank you very much, and congratulations on the new town council members. I hope you have a wonderful 2 years.
Thank you, Leslie. Justin Katz, process question.
Good evening. Congratulations to all of you. The first one's a question, although I don't think you're allowed to answer it. I wanted to see whether, well, I'll phrase it as a suggestion then. The public comment period at the beginning, I would encourage you to reconsider that. There are items on agendas that people it would be more relevant to comment at the end. In particular, one I'll additionally comment on, there's a chance that one of your items could branch into a conversation in which I'd like to offer input, but I won't know that until the very end of your meeting. And I'd rather not bring it up in this kind of a forum. But given that, I will, since you may discuss the Budget Committee appointment when you, in item D1, when you discuss Mr. Perry's resignation from that board, I wanted to make a quick statement. I've done some research on the history of those appointments, on which I'd be happy to elaborate in any way you'd like. The charter leaves the process up to you to appoint whom you would like, as you see fit. But the precedent that I've found is clear that right after the election, in this very situation, the next vote getter on the Budget Committee has gotten the appointment. It's only happened once that I could find in the history of Tiverton, and it was a unanimous vote by both factions on the council. And I would encourage you to consider, when you make that decision, that you can either make a gesture of good faith and reinforce this precedent and make it harder for future town councils to go against it, or you can sort of blow it out of the water and chart a new course, which I would suggest would be more divisive. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Michael Burke.
Thank you, Madam President, and I'll be brief. I just want to say congratulations on behalf of the Tiverton Democrats, to all of the newly elected members of the council, of the newly elected and re-elected members of the council, the school committee, the budget committee, and as well, Mr. Costa, as the town sergeant, Ms. Mello, as the town clerk, Judge D'Addario, and everybody else. I also want to say from us, thank you to those elected officials who are leaving office at this time. Some maybe more permanently than others because they may wish to move on to other things. But we have had some wonderful members of the Budget Committee departing, some who have moved up, Dave Perry and Joe Souza, Donna Edwards, Jim Amarantes, who has given many years of his life to the town, Chris Cotta as well, and Joanna Arruda. To councilors Roderick, Gerlach, and Arruda, thank you. And again, one of the lesser-known positions, Leslie, for Town Sergeant. Thank you very much for your service. And it was a very spirited campaign. We are very hopeful that we can all put that behind us and work together and try to find positive solutions for the town. That said, I do want to make a note on a comment that Mr. Katz made. Please do your homework, because I don't believe that what he describes as a precedent is truly a precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearings and public presentation, Barbara Pelletier, celebration of Tiverton's farming community.
Good evening and congratulations. As we've been working on this identifying our farmers, and I do hope some have actually shown up. We did send invitations out of the town hall, and can only hope that this will grow. And let's face it, without farmers, there's no food. And actually, when I did visit what our venues are in farming, some of their prices were very, very favorable. We should support our local farmers and buy things like local eggs, where we know our chickens breathe good air and are happy, and all of that. And by the way, the apple squares down there were made with local apples, so let's all use our local products. And I do wish, did any farmers show up? Hi. Thank you. There's great opportunity. The state of Rhode Island is actually pushing agritourism, and on the Discover Newport side already, there is an agritourism link with several of our farms being listed. So if anyone else would like to do that, please do so. The other thing is that DEM is trying to combine an effort for farming and fishing, both fresh fish and fresh farm goods. And it's not just the fact that we should go and buy the products. It's more identifying who has them and putting them for easy access to restaurants and people who buy on a larger scale, and that's where the profit for the farmers would most likely be realized. So I do think that when they think about it, they might want to take part in the program. And I've also been told that the state will pay for printing maps with pertinent information for the spring, so we'll be already accessible. And I would also like some actually little grocery bags printed, so we'll have a full-fledged kind of unveiling. And I think that is about all. One good thing I think we could do is designate a part of one of our information racks just for farming, so that the horse farmers, where we have many of, and they're invaluable to us because they have open spaces, and if you have a horse farm, you're not going to have houses built and the density is not there. So, when you start thinking, there's great, everyone should be supported, but they could have price points of riding lessons. We could, any information anyone wants to have, Christmas trees, anything. I think they should be able to leave a town hall, and we should be able to access them. And it should become a known thing. And pretty much that's all. Thank you, so.
Thank you, Barbara. Town Council sitting as Board of Licensing, advertised public hearing for license renewals subject to meeting legal requirements December 1st, 2014 to November 30th, 2015. Junkyard and secondhand dealer license renewal December 1st, 2014 through November 30th, 2015, subject to meeting all legal requirements. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there any comment from the public?
Hello, my name's Chris Petropoulos. I represent General Auto Recycling. On line 7 of the agenda, in notice it says the town solicitor recommends a 60-day license renewal instead of the standard year. I have not been formally given any violation at all, not in writing. The most I've had is the town building inspector come over with the interim building inspector that was previously there before him and question me. After that, I have not heard anything. Up until last Thursday, Mr. Teets contacted me and said he was suggesting that you only give me 60 days. As of today, I've done absolutely nothing wrong. I haven't been found guilty of anything. It's like telling somebody they can't get a driver's license because they may possibly have sped, So I think I should be issued my license for the normal year. If I'm found in violation, just like every other salvage yard, treat it like that. Come over and do whatever we have to do to get us straightened out.
Mr. Tights?
Yes. As indicated, there was an inspection done a few months ago I have worked with the new building and zoning official regarding the violations. He was out sick for several days last week, so that's why the notices did not get to him. That's why I made a point of actually calling this gentleman last week. It is still my recommendation to the council that it not be renewed for a full year. Perhaps 60 days is too short a period. Maybe 120, double it to 120 days. But I do think there should be a review time on it. I understand he's correct. He hasn't been convicted of anything, but there is an active notice of violation pending, even though he hasn't received it yet. And I'm hesitant to recommend, I wouldn't recommend renewing it for a whole year. Obviously, that's up to the council's pleasure what you decide to do.
And are you aware of the violation?
I'm not aware of what the violations are. I'm aware that they think there are violations, and that's all I've been apprised of. It hasn't been, hey, you've done this, you've done that, there's been no statement at all. The only contact I've had is a handshake from the building inspector and a phone call from Mr. Tights. And that's, right, as of right now, I am not in violation. Am I, Mr. Tights?
Well, I
As of
believe...
right now.
Yes, I believe you are, because it's been issued by the inspector.
To who? It hasn't been issued to me.
It's been mailed to you. It's been mailed to you and to your agent of service of process for ABC Corp. So
As of 4 o'clock today, nobody received that.
I understand that, and that's why I made a point of calling you last week and telling you about it, so you wouldn't be surprised.
So basically, if I tell the IRS I mailed them the money, even though they haven't received it as of April 15th postmarked, they're not going to violate me and say, hey, we're not going to penalize you. We know you.
That example, the IRS will come and get you.
No, I'm saying, if I say I pay, I don't want to get fined. That's what I'm saying, but I'm just arguing the fact that it's in the mail. Come on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very
Madam
much.
President,
Yes.
You want a question?
well, I'd first like to say I've seen this happen before with the council when there was an alleged violation at a coffee shop down the road. The shop was publicly embarrassed as their license was held up to find out that after the inspection that the violation didn't even exist, and we had to drag the owner of the property in here and publicly embarrass him. And I'm seeing a similar thing here. First off, there's a presumption of innocence. He may have been issued a violation. It certainly doesn't mean he's guilty of any violation until he's found in a court of law or whatever procedure it's going to go forward for it. So to put this on the bottom of the agenda to recommend a 60-day license, that's not the process that we follow in this town. The license should be issued, and then if a violation is found, then he's brought before the council to show why we shouldn't suspend his license. So the man should be issued the license, and he shouldn't have been embarrassed like this.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments from the public?
Yeah, just a quick
Any-
question, Madam President. And, sorry, what?
I was still going to
Oh.
ask one more for the...
Oh.
okay. Any more comments from the public? I'd like to close this public hearing. Go ahead. Mr. Belladere.
Thank you. What is the process? Because we're talking about two separate things, and what we do when we're approving licenses is that they're subject to meeting all legal requirements, and typically what we would have is a violation if there were an outstanding violation or an outstanding fee or an outstanding tax. We would not approve that license until that was cleared up. But is there an opportunity to revoke a license for a zoning-related issue? And what is the process for that?
Well, as you said, typically, you issue your licenses subject to meeting all legal requirements. So if anyone is not in compliance, it wouldn't be issued. In the alternative, once you've issued the license, if there's a violation, there would be a show cause hearing before the council as to why the license should not be revoked or suspended.
What's the burden of proof in that regard?
It's somewhat significant on the part of the council. You really wouldn't have a show cause hearing like that until after you'd had a final disposition on the underlying violation, which, as we know, if it's appealed to, if it goes to municipal court, if it's appealed to the Superior Court or even the Supreme Court, that can be years. Whereas on the other hand, where you have an ability to grant a license,
It's not a privilege, it's something you grant, but there's a property right involved. You can, that's why the state law provides that you give these licenses only for 1 year. All of these licenses that we have in front of you, so that you have a chance to examine it. If there are problems with any of them, you have a chance to examine them every year. So there is a little bit of a different standard. There'd be a harder standard and a higher burden for the council to meet on a show cause hearing as opposed to a renewal.
Thank you.
Any other comment from the council?
Yeah, Madam President, I see no issue with the 60-day license. He's still going to be in operation. We're not closing down his junkyard or recycling facility, and let the due process work itself out. We've got 60 days to look at it.
Any other comment?
Well, I would just question that, because there's been nothing issued to the man. He hasn't been, I don't understand. It's like you're saying you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent.
He's still
We're
operating.
not under bullying code here. This is,
He's
He's
operating
obvious-
his business.
Right,
No one's
he's still
stopping him from
operating his business.
this is a public embarrassment. To be accused of doing something that he may not have done. And the fact that he's going to have to bring his body and perhaps hire an attorney already to come back. We're causing him, there's a process for this, and that's to issue a license to a man who hasn't been issued any type of violations.
Well, that's not
Again,
entirely true.
It's in the mail.
There's a notice of violation pending.
There is a
Is it
violation.
in my package? I didn't see it.
It's in the mail.
But I didn't get a copy of my package.
Of the violation.
Well, if you paid attention, you'd hear that it's in the mail.
Would
But
you
we don't
like,
have a copy.
Not to you,
No.
to him.
would you like a copy now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think,
We don't have to stop the meeting for it, please. But I'd like a copy. I mean, if it's something minute, why are we even wasting the town's time? I mean, it may be something we can just negotiate.
Well-
Madam President, I would just make one comment. That is, we have a notice from our building official or our zoning official indicating that there is a notice of violation on this property. It doesn't indicate what it is specifically. And I'm sure when we get that, we can get that, but it's on the back page of the item. And what I would say is, is that we have that process. We have our official that has put us on notice that there is a notice of violation on this property, to make us aware that there is potentially an issue there, a zoning-related issue.
Now, are you restricted from taking that license after a show cause hearing? You're
sorry, what?
going ahead of the process. You're already assuming that he's going to be found in violation by some...
I have made no such assertion.
Well, then why would you not issue the man a license?
We are issuing the license.
No, I mean a license like everybody else on the list. I'm not going to argue the point anymore.
We move this forward.
at this
is a
point, I'd like
problem.
to, entertain a motion, please.
Let's continue.
I'd like to entertain a
I
motion.
just had one question. When you issue out this license and you direct the clerk, subject to all legal requirements, in the past, the council has said, with this backup, which is in your packet, I would not be able to issue it without you
Right. It would come
overriding the
back.
fact that it has it here.
It would come
I just
back.
want you to understand, that was one of your issues, that you came after the clerk's office and said, you've got to go check for violations. So you
Correct.
do have that.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the junkyard and second-hand dealer license renewal December 1st, 2014 through November 30th, 2015, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
I will move that we approve all of the junkyard and secondhand dealers licenses C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for the term of December 1st, 2014 to November 30th, 2015, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? I'd like to entertain another motion concerning general...
You need to call for a vote.
Opposed, I'm sorry.
I move that we approve junkyard and secondhand dealers license renewal for C7 for a term of 120 days, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
I have a problem with this. Subject to meeting all the legal requirements, but are you telling me that this violation is okay? That is not what your directions to the clerk has been in the past. You're saying subject to meeting all legal requirements, which requires the building official to tell me there is no violation.
So what you're saying is
You're
the renewal of
making it
120,
difficult
right?
for me to issue this man a license, or this company.
We're not making it.
No,
That
I
has been
don't
the
know.
policy of the town council for as long as I've been
Okay.
on the town council.
So what you're essentially saying is it
So we
does
do it
not
in
meet
every
the legal
other, it's what we
requirements
do
to
in
not
the,
issue.
we,
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If perhaps Council Pelletier would like to amend his motion to read all other legal
Yes,
requirements, so we can make it clear.
Yep.
Other than the pending violation.
so amended.
Do I have a second to the amended?
Approved.
All those in favor? Opposed? Liquor license renewals December 1st, 2014 to November 30th, 2015. Subject to meeting all legal requirements. Class A liquor stores, $1,000. I'd like to open the public hearing. Any comment from the audience? Any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? I'd like to entertain a motion.
I move that we approve all of the Class A liquor licenses for the three listed applicants in CA 1, 2, and 3, I'm sorry, C, these aren't numbered properly, but Class A liquor licenses, all three.
All those in favor? Opposed? Class BV for liquor license. I'd like to open the public hearing. Any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? I'd like to close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move that we approve all Class BV full liquor licenses 1 through 15 as listed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm sorry, were there any opposed?
No. Class BVL limited liquor license, $400. I'd like to open the public hearing. Any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? I'd like to close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move that we approve all Class BVL limited liquor licenses to the three applicants listed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Class B2 Bed and Tavern, $800. I'd like to open the public hearing. Do I have any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? I'd like to close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move that we approve all Class BT Bed and Tavern, well, the one BT Bed and Tavern liquor license subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Class D, unlimited club license, $200. I'd like to open the public hearing. Any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? Any comment from the public? At this point, I'd like to close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move that we approve all Class D unlimited club licenses to the three listed applicants, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Non-advertised public hearing for license renewal subject to meeting legal requirements, December 1st, 2014 to November 30th, 2015. Manufactured home elderly community license renewal, Country View Estate, Planning Board recommendation, and Building Zone official recommendation. Anyone?
Move that we approve the manufactured home elderly community license renewal for Country View Estates, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second?
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor? Opposed? New non-advertised license, subject to meeting legal requirements, December 1st, 2014 to November 30th, 2015. Jason, I'm going to ruin this name, Kobaliki, 135 Caribou Way, Tiverton, requests approval of private detective license, recommendation of police chief. Any discussion? Like to entertain a motion?
Move that we approve the, private detective license for Jason Kobalecki, 135 Caribou Way, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second?
Motion is made and second. All those in favor? Appointment and resignations. Resignation of David Perry from the Budget Committee effective 11/10/2014. David, though I'm sorry to see you leave the Budget Committee, I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Need a motion to accept with regrets?
Do I have a second? He's here with you, though. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Resignation of Carrie Bailey from the Historical Cemetery Commission. Do I have a motion to accept with regret?
I move that we accept Carrie Bailey's resignation from the Historical Cemeteries Commission with great thanks and gratitude for her years of service.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion been made in second. All those in favor? Unfinished business. DPW Director Stephen Belushi. Discussion regarding recommendation for the determination of ownership and town services on Cynthia Avenue.
Thank you, Madam President. We were here about this time last year with the same issue. In my opinion, we have a private, unaccepted, unimproved gravel road that we haven't been servicing as far as the road itself. We've picked rubbish up on Cynthia Avenue. We have been plowing and sanding it, but we have not done any physical work on the road. The past street committee looked into 9 gravel private roads and started to address why the town is providing services for them. We went through 5 of those roads, and the past council, because they didn't meet the requirements of basically our charter or ordinances or regulations, voted 5 of them to receive no town services because they were basically not safe enough for our town vehicles and everything to go down. Cynthia Avenue was the next one up on the list. 6 out of 9. The other 3 are still in deliberations with other issues. So this is really the 6th one in the list of 9 that were just like the other 5. The road is a gravel road with no drainage and no paving. When it was subdivided, the developer requested that it be a private road and the deed not be turned over to the town. The road was built, the lots were sold, and now we have a situation where the road is no longer being taken care of by the owners or owner, and I cannot drive my plows down there without doing damage. I sent them a formal letter last year that went out a little late, asking them, or basically reminding them that if they didn't take care of the road, I wouldn't be able to plow and sand it. Last time, the council suggested that I fix the road for the winter, fill the potholes, grade them off, and continue providing services. That I did. That I did twice, because the road would not even hold up after the first time that I fixed it. So now we're in a situation where, the charter, dictates that under the powers and responsibility of the Department of Public Works, the functions and services relating to town streets it really says only belonging to or used by the town. So under the charter, I don't have the power to go ahead and do more work on Cynthia Avenue because it doesn't belong to the town and it isn't used by the town. All of our ordinances suggest that if a road isn't accepted, not only suggest, list, that if a road isn't accepted, the DPW should provide no services, that the road shall remain an unaccepted road until it's brought up to standards and accepted by the town council. This road has never been accepted by the town council for maintenance services. And we've even gone so far in the last street committee is to get an opinion from our town solicitor before we even brought it to you last year. And I'll just read what he said. He said, in his opinion, Cynthia Ave is a public way with the right to travel over. The public can travel over it. He stated that the maintenance is only provided when the town council votes a public way, a town-accepted road. He said that he did not believe that the town had done anything as far as accepting Cynthia Avenue. It remains a public way for people to travel over. So the way I interpret that is that the public, since it's been using it to go back and forth to Mr. Sanford's junkyard and the abutters that use it to go back and forth in the road, and the public has a right to use it, but the road is not owned or has been accepted by the town. So, based on all of that, and following through with the other 5 streets that we looked at right before this, I think we have to be consistent in my recommendation that Cynthia Ave is an unaccepted road, and that all town services, all DPW services should be stopped except for collection of rubbish at Crandall Road, the nearest public road. And that's consistent with the 5 other roads that you and some of you in past councils have voted to do the exactly same thing. So I'm kind of need direction on, I can't break the charter, I can't break our ordinances, and this has been going on for 6 years, not just 2. So that's where I'm at.
So there's been no work since we patched it up by the owner at all?
I have not done any work, just patched it up last winter.
And the owners haven't done anything with the road?
Is what?
The owners haven't done anything with the road either, because...
In 2 years, the owners
in
haven't...
the past, it says here that Sanford and Sons has done some work on the road in the past.
Yes.
And they haven't?
No one has, no.
Did the street committee give a recommendation, or...
The street committee did send a recommendation to town council to just do what I said, to provide no services except rubbish collection at Crandall Road. That was a recommendation of the past street committee.
And I'd like to make a comment on that. That was at the March 13th, 2012 meeting. Mr. Tights attended that meeting, and the vote was taken to terminate town services for the road. Unfortunately, 2 of the people voting in favor of that were not allowed to vote. So therefore, we cannot accept the minutes of the 3/13/12 meeting as the street committee giving its approval to say discontinue town services. It has to go back to the street committee, the current street committee, for a vote and a recommendation.
And that's what I was getting at. Maybe the current street committee needs to give us a recommendation before we move forward.
But I also want to interject, you were supposed to do repairs. Could you explain the repairs that the town council requested you to do?
Yes, they requested me to basically fill the big divots and the big potholes with gravel and grade them off to make them passable for the snow plows so we could provide the snow plowing and sanding services for them all winter. That's what the council directed me to do.
That's what you did.
That's what I did, twice.
Mr. Odell?
Good evening, yes. I would just like to remind the council of what was said here last year, as I have the minutes in front of me from the December 19th, 2013 meeting. The first was already covered. The street committee at the time that made that recommendation is improperly formed and had members with no standing in violations of a lot of Rhode Island general laws that I quoted at that meeting. Further to that, One of the things that was supposed to be addressed when that street was repaired, and it was a stopgap measure. There were discussions what it would take to properly repair it. I think the estimate's a little high, but the stopgap measure that was supposed to be taken, part of that was supposed to be graded. I don't believe a grader ever made an appearance there, and the reason I say that is because I was on that street 2 days after the work was done, and my sneaker-clad left foot went 2 inches into what was there 2 days after this work was done. And at this time, to say the street is in similar condition to what it was last year, I think that you counselors, at your convenience, should take your own time and drive down there again and let me know what you think.
I went there
Because I took my wife's 2012 Bug down there last week, which sits about 4 inches off the ground, and I didn't bottom out at all. A year ago, I nearly bottomed out in my raised 3/4-ton pickup. So the street is nowhere in the condition that it was a year ago. The last thing I'll say on it is this. The street committee just the other night had our first meeting pertaining to Cynthia Avenue, and I believe the reason that the street committee was put in place was to do the research and make a recommendation to the town before any decision is made as to deciding ownership, what's going to be done and what's not going to be done. And it's my position at this time that that hasn't been done by this standing street committee yet. Thank you.
Well, that, Joe?
Mr. Brucci, has there ever been any engineering done on that road, or was anything on file? I know you had mentioned that they may need drainage, so I'm wondering...
Well, the engineering that was done is when the subdivision was proposed, a plan was developed that showed the road 1,000 feet long, layout, and 40 feet wide. It didn't show any drainage, it didn't show any electric, it didn't show anything else.
It wasn't an approved plan. The planning board never approved
Yes, the planning board approved
without drainage.
the layout. When the road was built, the developer proposed the road to be private, so the town wouldn't require drainage because it was a gravel road.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Gotcha.
And the reason I'm acting now is because Mr. Odell called me about 2 weeks ago and said the road's getting impassable. Would you go look at it? I mean, I didn't choose to go look at this road. It was a complaint called in by a resident. And I went out there, and it's getting there. It's not going to go through the winter. We're going to end up in the same situation we did, and so I answered a complaint.
So your opinion, though, and I've been out there on rainy roads, and it seems like there was collection sort of at the bottom, the hill coming down from
Yep.
the end. I mean, it just seemed to me, from what I've seen over the years, that they would need a manhole or two in there, and perhaps even a cistern under the road, because I didn't see any place you could possibly put a retention.
Well, you're exactly right. The road has a low point 3/4 of the way in,
Yeah.
where it drains back from the junkyard, and it drains forward from the main road, so you have a low point. And in the low point, and all the water empties through an abutter's driveway into his backyard.
So we would
That's-
need a survey
Yes,
and engineering done
right? Drainage easements, drainage structures, drainage
Sure.
pipes, and a road.
to show even what that road needs to be to come up to spec of the town to be accepted, including that, would be 40 foot.
Well, I think, yeah, it's about, we need a 24-foot road
24
paved, you know? There's a 40-foot layout, we need a 20-foot paved road. It's the drainage is the issue. It's, you know, if the town ends up accepting this road, we're accepting the liability of everything that goes on with this road, and the drainage liability in this case is pretty big. There's no drainage, and it's going into a guy's yard and into his backyard. So you need easements, you need all kinds of things. But the road has to be rebuilt, and drainage and paved and everything.
If I could just finish real quickly, my point being is, I know this has been going before the council for quite a few years, but I don't think we've ever came up with a resolve for the problem. So my belief is that it is a private road, and it's up to the people that live on that road to either, A, form an organization of themselves and put the money up to fix the road, to bring it up to code to be accepted, or to ask the people in town, perhaps through the the town of Tiverton has in its charter the ability to put a question on a ballot to form a voter initiative. So if they were to go to the people of the town and ask them for help via the money to get that road, they'd have two choices. But I mean, it's not something that the council can vote to do. It has to be a vote of the people to fund it, or they're gonna have to fund it themselves. So, I mean, but to get us to that point, I mean, I want to see, what I'd like to see from the people on that road is them to come out and be active in an organization and to either come out and tell us that they can't afford to pave that road on their own, that they're going to, go forward and try to do something with the budget committee and perhaps get something on there to try to get a resolve in this. I mean, and for the private roads in town as well. I mean, they only have two choices. I mean, the council obviously can't vote to.
Can't speak.
Now,
At this-
I was going to say, Madam President, when this issue came up the first time about a year ago, I suggested that the town actually come up with a plan. If I recall Mr. Bellucci's earlier testimony, this goes back a year or so, we have something like 164 streets that are unaccepted. We have something like 20 miles of streets or roads that are unaccepted. I don't think that makes any sense at all in a 21st century community. And I was surprised to discover, if you go on Google, a number of towns in New England, especially Massachusetts and New Hampshire, have had similar problems like this. And I'm not talking about just small towns like Tiverton. And they've come up with municipal plans to address this whole type of issue. What I'm hoping is that at some point we recognize we're just passing these problems on. 10 years from now, a town council will be considering the same issue. 20 years from now, another town council will be considering this issue. At some point, I'd like to see the town council resolve to try to address the issue as a town issue, and we can do it. As I say, simply go on Google, Joe, and there's any number of plans that have been worked out in other communities to address this type of problem. And until we're prepared to do that, we're just going to keep seeing Cynthia Avenue and the other 164
Well, I
streets.
agree, but it has to be, if there's going to be some sort of an ad hoc committee, it has to be the people who live along those streets that come out of their homes
Oh, yeah.
and get involved in these committees. Because quite frankly, I'm not willing to carry the water. They need to come out here to these meetings and get involved in this town and get the problem fixed.
Well, there are a number of proposals that have been made in other communities, and one of the problems is trying to be as realistic as possible. If you go into a typical street like Cynthia Avenue, and I don't know how many people live on Cynthia Avenue, I've been there, let's say it's, 14, 15, 16 families, something like that.
10 houses?
And you then tell me that the cost of the reconstruction is going to be $20,000 or $30,000. Where do I come up with the $20,000 or $30,000? That's why I think communities have come together with municipal plans to address this type of issue. The typical family living on one of these streets is not going to be able to fund the type of reconstruction that's needed. That's it, period. That's reality.
I think my opinion right now is that we should get a recommendation from the street committee and come back to us with that recommendation, and then we will go from there. And I don't know if the rest of you agree with me, but it didn't go through the street committee, so.
And Joe, you weren't there at that last meeting. Those people showed documents that the town approved the road at the subdivision, paid for the telephone poles. So I think that we should rehash and relook at the facts that the residents have. No, not right now.
Not right
And
now.
I think all the new town councils should review this before you assume that this is a private road.
So do I have a motion to send this to the street committee for review?
I think you already have it. I'll make a motion to send it to the street committee, come back for further review.
And the service is maintained.
Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Wait. Discussion?
I'm sorry, Madam President? I just want to note, we have a couple of residents of the street who are members of the street committee, so they'll need to recuse themselves. I think we have to make sure that we have a quorum
I'm not a
without those
resident.
two.
I am a resident of Crandall Road, not Cynthia Avenue, just for the record.
But you're in a butter, to Cynthia Ave.
I understand that. I'm just,
So-
you said we had two residents. This
Okay.
isn't Cynthia Avenue. I'm not a resident of
It's
Cynthia
okay,
Avenue.
please.
We have two people who are in close proximity who will need to recuse themselves from the discussion. So I just want to make sure that in scheduling the street committee, we make sure that we have the quorum of the other voting members of the street committee present.
Right.
And the other thing I just want to note for the record, that I did receive a call from Patrick Dougherty, who was an attorney for several of the residents. I don't know if they're all of them or not, who indicated that he had been contacted just recently, since this was just put on the agenda last week, and he was not able to be here. He has another meeting in Narragansett. Since you're not taking action, I don't think it's a problem, but I just wanted to put that on the record, that he had requested that it not be acted on tonight.
Right, it was just for discussion, and,
So,
okay.
Madam
The street committee will.
Madam President, may I have permission then to maintain the road and the potholes so I can plow it? Because if we go along, if this gets prolonged, we could run into a plowing issue. So if it would be all right?
I have a question. What was the motion at the December 19th meeting? Was there any time frame on that? I believe it was
It was one
to
time.
be,
I think it was one time.
I thought it was until it came back to the council for a resolution.
I'm not sure.
Is it in here?
How much time are we talking about? Spending?
Well, you're sending it to the street committee, so I don't know how long that's going to
No,
take.
I'm
to
talking
get
about,
to-
how much time are we talking about for you to send what would you send over there, first off? The
I would
backhoe?
send a backhoe and a backhoe and a six-wheeler with gravel in it.
Yeah, it-
And just fill. So
It
we're
took like a
talking
day,
half-
right?
Huh?
Talking a half a day to fill potholes.
I'm not arguing about how much it's going to cost.
No,
I
I'm wondering
really,
how much, time we're actually gonna spend over there.
$2,500 to $3,000.
The question I have is, and maybe the street committee can answer this. You said this was the first meeting on Cynthia Avenue was it a couple days ago?
With the new street committee, yes, that's
With the new-
correct.
What does that mean with the new street committee?
Was it what?
What does that mean with the
With
new
the-
street
with the
committee?
street
The new
committee
street
appointed.
committee is the committee that was legitimately formed with electors, as it should have been from the beginning, sir.
Okay, and that was formed when?
That was formed when you folks,
Yeah,
shortly before you folks appointed me.
in December, maybe.
Was that a year or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, about a year.
And have you been working on Cynthia Avenue this past year?
I've done my own, a lot of my
Has
own
the-
research.
Sorry, has the committee?
The committee just put it on its agenda for the first meeting the other night. We missed two meetings because we weren't furnished with information to the streets before it. And so we were forced not to conduct two meetings. We did not have a meeting in September or October. And the reason was, we didn't have the information back that we had requested back in September.
I would respectfully suggest that if we do remand this to the street committee, we have a check-in date that's no later than a month or so that we can keep tabs on this issue. I don't want this to go another year and then we'd be back.
I believe our next meeting is in January.
You don't have a meeting in
We
December?
we have members that aren't going to be able to attend that meeting in December.
Okay.
I'd also like to make a motion that we allow
a motion
Mr.
on the
Berrucci
motion
to
on the
do
table.
There's already a motion on the table.
what he needs to do. Well, this should be amended to allow
Well-
Mr. Berrucci to do what he needs to do.
The motion is to send it to the street committee.
That's the first motion.
All those in favor?
Can we?
It's already,
Okay.
go ahead, Brett.
No, that's all right. Oh, I'm asking for clarification. Is the motion just to send it to the street committee, open-ended?
That was the
We can-
original
we can-
motion. We
we
can
can-
amend it.
We can amend it.
We could have a second motion, because I'll support
That's fine.
Joe's motion. We can't let this go through the winter
No,
without
no, we need
Mr.
to
Bellucci keeping
check
an
in
eye
on
on
it.
it.
Okay.
So make an amendment to that motion to have them come back to us in January, second meeting in January?
When is your meeting, Mr. Odell?
Our meeting is generally the third Wednesday of the month. That
A long time
would put it mid-January.
It's 2 months away.
Problem is, they're not meeting in December.
Well, we can't meet in
I know.
December because we have three members that aren't going to be available.
Is there any way you can meet earlier in January? Yeah, I mean,
I
it
don't,
would
I don't
be
see why
hard.
not. I don't see why we couldn't amend our schedule to get an earlier meeting in January. Absolutely.
Okay. So maybe with an update for the second meeting in January.
Okay?
All those in favor? Opposed? Now, do I have another motion on the floor?
To allow Mr. Barucci to do what he needs to do to make sure that that road is passable for our plows.
Second.
I don't think we have to.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We have language that said we authorize Steve to maintain the road until we found a resolution. Can someone please get that document out so that we can look at it? It's not in our packet.
So it's already in effect that he's...
Correct, Joe.
Mr. Pelletier, are you asking for the minutes from the meeting last
I am
December?
asking for the document that was signed
all the
by the residents.
Oh,
What document?
Wasn't there an agreement made?
Yes, there was an agreement.
It was an
signed by all
agreement
the
with...
residents of the
That
borough.
meeting, we all
Yes.
signed it.
Everybody signed it.
Right.
Because we were not going to bear the liability of, without notice from an authorization from the residents.
Was there an end date to that?
Right,
There was
that's-
no end date. It was gonna-
Acceptance of the road.
Right.
But I don't remember the dates. I'd have to look it up.
So what we're basically saying is we don't need a motion.
Well,
Right, so we already...
Well,
take care of it.
Have that.
if he's covered, then he doesn't need the motion, that's fine.
Correct.
As long as you
All right,
follow-
as long as I'm not back in front of you later,
Someone please
that's
check
fine.
on
I
that.
mean, we'll take care of it, no
I
problem.
withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
No financial business, no new business, bidding requests for proposals, none. Town administrator, items and announcements.
Madam President, I'd like to address, if I could, on my own time, two issues that came up this evening, because I want to make it abundantly clear what we strive to do every single day with our town officials. We strive to enforce the rules as they are written and work within the processes that are established by written regulations and rules. Sometimes the timing is inconvenient, which is the case with your licensing issue this evening. I want to make it clear to everyone that when a constituent, when a taxpayer of the town calls town hall with a complaint that relates to a zoning matter, that every effort is made to provide a factual basis to reach some conclusion about what's going on. And I've asked that office to never lose sight of the fact that A, people need to make a living, and B, people who own property have property rights. We'll do everything we can within the rights to defend the integrity, to defend the opportunity of those people to make their living from the property that they own. When we have a bright line rule, we will make every effort to enforce the rules as they are written and let the process play itself out. Unfortunately, my observation is that in the past, your enforcement efforts may have been inconsistent. And that in the past, we may not have always had that prism to view these issues through, the ability of a property owner to make a living. We're trying to address all of those things and at the same time still make sure that the job gets done. When it comes to certain items in your licensing ordinances, zoning and licensing begin to become interdependent issues. And they have different burdens of proof and different outcomes. It is much easier to hold back a license than it is to revoke one once it is given. And our zoning officials sometimes, because the way the zoning is written, specifically with respect to expansion, it's a time series. So it's not just one measurement, it's multiple measurements of the same place to determine if there is a pattern that points towards a violation. So it took us probably 8 weeks to get better information, to make the observation, have the conversations. I will also say this. We have had every indication that the business owner involved here is an honorable person and will talk to us and make every attempt to continue on in the business that has existed for a long time. And anyone finding themselves in that situation is welcome to come in and talk through these issues before it gets to this point. But unfortunately, this is where we are with this one. My observation was that our officials were somewhat more explicit about the problems they were looking at, but I don't want to get into that now. Lastly, my second point and last point this evening is regarding streets. I've expressed to several people my personal bias is that we should make every effort to find a way to reach agreement. Reasonable people should be able to observe the facts on the ground and preserve, if nothing else, the status quo, but to do so within the context of rules that you have. So I personally disagree with Mr. Bellucci's interpretation of the charter. I don't think it's as explicit as the zoning code. The zoning code is very explicit, that he is not to go on any unaccepted street in town. The good news is, the council, you make the rules, you can also, when policy issues demand, you can address the shortfalls in those rules and come up with an accommodation. Create a category, call it substandard streets. Authorize yourself to make a specific agreement about a specific street. But under no circumstances can you ask your official to violate the law, because he creates liability in following his instructions, and then he's caught, the Greek mythology, between the whirlpool and the dragon, Scylla and Charybdis. What's he supposed to do? He can defy the council and not do as he's ordered because he's got the law to back him up, or he can violate the law upon the orders or the wishes of the council. The poor guy doesn't know if he's coming or going. The solution is, if you don't like the rules, please change the rules. And what I've never seen, and I've read every file that we've had in the town administrator's office, is a legal analysis of what our legal options are, whether or not we can reach agreements. Is there a middle ground where you can have limited range of services? Because I'll tell you the one thing we'll never do. You always put human life first. And so we know if we're going to run the bus, the ambulance, up a street, that ambulance has to be able to get there in a timely fashion and in a way where you can deliver the patient back across the street to a main thoroughfare. And after all of these years of services being provided to people, the equities are strongly in their favor for those services to continue. So every single street really is its own unique universe, its own unique set of problems, and you have reached the point now where all you have left, most of what you have left, are the sticky problems. And I would only ask, and I would certainly want to signal to everyone that I'll do everything I can to try to find creative solutions to it, above and beyond simple bright line rules, private, not private, accepted, not accepted. If life worked that way, most of us would be out of luck, because most of us end up navigating through the gray areas of life to try to get our way to what we need. So I thank you very much for your indulgence.
Thank you.
Madam President, I don't know if I missed an opportunity. Back
I'm
on-
doing council announcements now. Is that what you're going to?
Is it town council announcement?
Yes.
Okay.
Council announcements, comments, and questions. Right now I have Councilor Pelletier and former Councilor Gerlach, distribution and review of information relating to ongoing effort to improve trash and recycling infrastructure at parks and beaches.
Thank you. This is kind of a get up to speed and a progress report for new counselors and returning counselors alike. To refresh your memory, Bill and I put a presentation together in June, regarding improving trash and recycling infrastructure at parks and beaches. The packet includes the presentation that was done, a memo, a briefing memo that Bill and I have put together that outlines, summarizes those conclusions, puts in place the conclusions and recommendations that we have since determined, and then outlines some of the proposed locations and potential costs associated with the town-wide system. And what I essentially did was I contacted the manufacturer of the bin that we liked the best, just as a starting point to see if there were any bulk discounts and what the shipping lead time, manufacturing lead time and shipping times were, and just to get some understanding of what the scope and scale of this project would be. And that's expressed in a number of areas, the table on the second page of my memo, and also the actual backup quotes from them. The round in numbers, when Bill and I went through our list, we initially thought perhaps we had 30 potential locations. We now, I believe, think that there's 27 locations if we were to do the entire town, and they're listed. So what we did was we asked the manufacturer what the cost would be on a bulk rate basis. It's about a 20% discount if we buy in bulk, and that's more than 20 units or so. They're going to have a price increase likely in the first quarter due to steel prices and other materials prices of 3 to 5%, and that's indicated in the second column of what the cost potentially increase would be. And then we add freight in, and round numbers, it's just under, it's just over $26,000 for all 27 if we were to do all of those at once. Part of this exercise was also to reach out to the town administrator, the DPW director, maintenance staff, and the landfill committee, recycling commission, to garner additional input for the second round. What is the logistical hurdles that we face? Do we have storage for these units? Would we prioritize certain areas? Would we be willing to spend the money now to get a substantial discount, or do we want to break this up into 2 or 3 iterations? And then that leads us to the most probable next step. Anything we do when we purchase something, we certainly will have to go out to a competitive bid process. But I just wanted everybody to know what the cost of these things were, and why Bill and I, after seeing these, thought they were hands down better than plastic, recycled plastic bag, or concrete-based units. They're much more substantial. They are fairly indestructible. They're brightly colored. They kind of tick all the boxes, and they really are probably the best units. So that was the, hopefully, if you haven't read the memo, you'll read it in the coming days and weeks. And at the next meeting or the meeting after that, perhaps we'll have, I'll have some additional information and input from those parties that I have also copied on this. Town administrator is obviously the lead man on this. Any questions I can certainly answer.
Madam President. Well, when we were sitting on the Budget Committee, I remember this being discussed, and also watching your council meetings. And I asked the question then, what would the private option be? And I worked out in Newport, worked construction in Newport for over 20-some years. I watched Newport change over. They contracted waste management. Waste management picks up the trash. I believe it's what, Patriot here?
Yeah.
So my vision would be that we ask Patriot what they would charge us to do a similar plan. I know in Newport, I spoke with Councilor Napolitano years ago about it, and she said that they had saved quite a bit of money by, adding it to the contract over having Public Works, pick up and distribute the cans once a year, and the removal and everything. So I'm hoping that we're going to have an option to look at, because, the town needs to get the best value for its dollar. And if, going the private route and having the same people that pick up the trash on the streets every day, picking up our ball fields and, beaches a couple times a week, and we can save money. We could get the trash picked up and have some money savings. So I think we need to investigate both options.
So I can address a couple of those, and Jay can probably address in more detail.
If I can
Yeah.
address some of those, Joe. We have no concern whatsoever with having options. The purpose of this was to come up with the cost of the actual bins, the recycling bins and the rubbish bins. Part of the background to this is that, as you probably know, Tiverton has an excellent recycling record. And we can thank Mr. Bellucci for that. And as a result, we get paid by Recovery Resources. Starting this year, Recovery Resources has made it clear that they want this money that they're paying us, and I forget what it was 30-some thousand, what was it? 38, I think. $38,000, whatever it was. Recovery Resources has made it clear that they want this money spent on recycling and picking up trash. So that's, I think, some of the background to the excellent job that Brett and Bill have done in putting this program together. But the dollar amounts that they're talking about represent the cost of the bins and the barrels. And what I intend to do with this report, actually, is give it to Mr. Bellucci, and this can be part of his report to Resource Recoveries, because they are going to be insisting that we find a way to spend that money on recycling. They're not just going to give it to us and tell us, put it in, the general fund.
I can't say I've been to a lot of landfill meetings, but I've been to a few, and I understand that, we receive a check every once in a while when they're able to sell enough of the product that we send up there. They profit share with the cities and towns, and I've seen some of the checks. And I'm sure there are a lot of things that our landfill needs, but my only point being is, I always want to spend money frugally. So,
No,
the
the pickup can be done privately or publicly,
Yeah.
but I think the first issue is going to be putting bins and barrels, and that's why I'm complimenting Brett and Bill for the excellent job that they've done. It's unfortunate that everybody doesn't have a copy of this material, but it sets out
the money can also
proposal
be used to
and
keep
where
things out
these
of our
bins will be
landfill.
going.
Point being, the money could be used, that money could be used for other things to keep things out of our landfill, like the bulk items that we have to ship up to Johnston and, running our compost and things like that. So there are other things that money could be used to protect, to keep the trash out of the landfill. My only point being is I think we need to explore all options to try to get the best value for the town, because it's labor intensive to dump that many cans. And we're talking about adding a load to DPW that's already shorthanded.
My suggestion, Joe, would be to take this up with the landfill committee. I mean, I'm sure they'll entertain any type of recommendation,
Well,
but
I
the
think-
bottom line is, we do have an obligation to spend this money. I mean that, we do.
Yeah.
And we have to spend it appropriately, and we have to make a full report to Resource Recovery.
Well, I've made my point to the town administrator that I mean, if we can submit what we have already over to the contractor, maybe they can give us some kind of idea to see where it would go if we went with the private option, where we're not purchasing the cans, they're providing them.
So I'll address that, because we spoke to that issue, and the problem for a lot of those collection services is the topography of Town Farm and the beach and all these other areas that they like to use tilt-off, the tilt-off big plastic containers, so that they pull the truck up, they just go and dump it in, and they're off. They're not getting a crew of guys to unlock 10 barrels, sort the recyclables into one, sort the trash into the other. They can't get a truck down to Town Farm and the lower fields and onto the beach and onto the...
Well, they actually do provide a service similar. If you look at where they do the Parks and Recreation in Newport, they do all the trash barrels on Lower Thames Street. I mean, I've watched the operation in Newport. I've seen how Waste Management does it, so I know they can provide any service that a Public Works Department can. They have a guy that goes around and picks the barrels up and walks them off, and they even go down some of the side streets, and he has to walk the barrels up on a hand truck, so, because of the parking so tight down there, they can't get the truck on the road. So anything, I just hope that we can see it bid both ways, and if I have to get involved more in it, I will, but I'd like to see an option. I think our town administrator could probably handle it, though.
I think at this point, we could move on.
I agree with Councilman Souza's comments. When there are plausible options, they all need to be priced out and brought back to the budget, so we get our best bang for our buck. This recycling money that comes back to us does have to be used for recycling. I do want to signal to the entire council and to the public that our number one priority is managing the solid waste stream after and immediately prior to closure of the landfill. So I was approached by a member of the landfill committee because we need to discuss rollaway beds that'll be positioned somewhere in this town to accept recycling for transport. And rollaway beds are not
So we're
without
gonna need money
expense.
for that.
So we will need money for that, and we don't want it to hit our bottom line of our operating budget, so that is the first priority. But we also have a couple of golden opportunities coming along the way to improve the appearance and overall facility of a couple of our key recreation facilities. So we have to keep that in mind. It makes a huge impression on people coming into town. And it's also an operational struggle for us to deal with everything that gets blown around or dragged around by gulls and raccoons and everything else, and sully the experience of using the town's recreational facilities. So this year, we were running guys around to catch up with it, and we do it on Friday, and it would already be ahead of us on Monday. So we need a storage facility that allows us to prevent that from happening. They need to be big enough and strong enough to resist those forces.
I just have one comment, and I don't want to prolong this any further. Joe speaks about Newport and guys walking up hills and across ball fields. There's a cost to all that.
Of course.
Believe me. They're not going to do that for nothing. They'd rather back up their trucks, hook up to the back of it, and dump it. Every time you put more people walking around and doing things, there's an added cost to it.
I'm happy to, certainly entertain all and any options, and unfortunately, that's above my authority to do. So, wink, wink, nod, nod.
All right, Mr. Perry, you have an announcement?
Yeah, I have one announcement. I'd like to have our town administrator go out for RFP and have that back to us for our first meeting in December. I think it's December 8th, for the purpose of a town solicitor.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
Is that a motion? I'll make that a motion.
And I'll second it.
Motion, discussion.
I guess my question, is this appropriate under
Well,
council
that's why I asked
announcements,
if I missed
comments, and questions?
I asked
Are
if
we-
I missed my opportunity back on requests.
I think wouldn't the request be that
We
it
can
be on the
direct,
next agenda?
we can direct the town administrator to draw up what an RFP would look like, and then put it on the agenda.
For the next meeting. You're not voting on anything tonight.
Right, so we could ask him to put together an RFP. So we wouldn't have to vote on it, but just as a,
Yeah, just so it's clear, I'm not trying to nitpick on these items, but remember, the public has a right to be here and to listen to these, to the town council, and maybe have a public hearing on some of these issues. If we just bring these issues up and begin discussing the merits under announcements and comments, I think we've deprived the typical resident of an opportunity to hear what we have to say or contribute
Well,
to
Mr.
the
Lambert,
discussion.
You're allowed to bring the-
I'm not trying to be
I-
difficult,
No, no,
I mean, that's my
And I understand,
explanation.
and I did come in, and I spoke to the town clerk, and
she
I was
said it was-
told to
Okay.
do it this way.
Okay.
He has to be needed an agenda, in my opinion. He can direct the administrator to do anything whenever he wants to.
and then we'll put it on the agenda to
But it's
discuss
not
it.
going on for
But-
any vote
yeah.
until it
Yeah,
comes
that's
back.
my
It's
point,
Just
yeah.
asking for
Yeah.
an RFP.
I did, but
Just
Yeah,
asking
so
for
so
an
long
RFP.
as it's an agenda item, I don't have a problem,
It's
okay.
not going to be
Can I-
any discussion on it, it's just asking him to do it.
Right?
You don't have to
Can I
vote.
ask a procedural question, please?
Go ahead.
All right, as a council member, am I allowed to request verbally an item be placed on the next agenda?
Exact, yes,
Right,
and you
I'd
submit
like-
it to Nancy.
Okay, I
And
just,
you-
what we had spoke about, I just want to ensure that that's on the next
Yes,
agenda.
yes. And-
Okay, all right, I didn't know. Dumbest question is the one you
No,
don't ask.
no. Nancy makes the agendas the Wednesday before the town council meeting.
Okay,
so as long-
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't within my purview
It's not-
to request that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other announcements?
Actually,
There's a motion on the table.
well, I
We're not
need to
gonna make a
ask him.
motion to drop it.
Yeah, I know, but I still need to ask him a couple of questions.
Sure.
Just as an aside, nobody makes the agenda but the council. So I would,
Right.
please, bring it all, and whenever it comes in the cycle of the process, there is a posting requirement. But that's all. I mean, members of the council should interact with the clerk and do the things of your concern forward, and they'll definitely make it. It's your body. Secondly, I do have to ask a clarifying question, because we have two relationships as a town with attorneys. We have a town solicitor who handles our litigation, our general municipal matters, and labor. And we also have a second relationship with the lawyer who works the planning board, zoning board, and other issues as assistant solicitor, but it is a separate agreement.
Correct.
So my question to you is, would you like an RFP to be in those two agreements? Or would you contemplate holding labor separate, or would you contemplate putting all three together?
I'd leave labor separate.
So you would like 3 different RFPs, or RFQs?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other council announcements?
Yes, Madam President, I had one more, I'm sorry. It was just a request, Nancy, that for the next meeting or the meeting after that, I'd prefer it to be the next meeting, but we'll see what the load looks like. I want to make sure our liaisons to boards and commissions are up to date, and I'd like a list of current seats and openings for ratification and whatever else. Thank you.
Any other council announcements? Town solicitor items and announcements, alcohol service, BYOB proposed ordinance, scheduled public hearing on January 26th, 2015.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a draft ordinance per request of the council at the last meeting, where we have provided you with sample. What we propose is an ordinance amendment. I just want to note, the first section of it, that's 6.1, is really relating to your existing liquor license. We follow the state law, but we didn't have a cross-reference in the ordinance. It wasn't really necessary, but we thought if we were adding a special section on BYOB, it would be somewhat confusing not to have it with the regular licenses. So section 6.1 is just to incorporate the state law with the existing licenses, and then the Article 4 part would be the BYOB license, which tracks state law for the sale of liquor licenses, sale of liquor, with some exceptions, trying to deal with the specific circumstances that would be involved there. So, and obviously given the notice and the other things, we're suggesting the second meeting of January for the public hearing.
We don't need a motion.
Usually you do. For putting something, for scheduling a public hearing for an
Want a
ordinance,
motion? Okay.
I think a motion would be appropriate.
Entertain a motion for the public hearing on the BYOB proposed ordinance, January 26, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Tiverton versus James and Melissa Pelletier, Tigard Supreme Court filing.
Yes, this is just part of providing for your information. This was the town's recent filing in the appeal before the Supreme Court. It's called a Rule 12A statement, and it's sort of a mini brief, if you will, as to the court as to what the issues are, and sets forth the town's position on the town's appeal. There are two separate appeals. There are James and Melissa Pelletier's appeal of their conviction, their guilty conviction, and then there is the town's appeal of the sentence. And we've also indicated there appeared to be an error on one of the forms with the judge where she said that it didn't apply to both defendants. So we have raised that issue in our appeal here. This is for information. Do you have any questions?
Okay.
And the other thing, could I ask for a motion to just add to the solicitor a comment about the streets? If I could, because I want to just respond to the administrator's comments about the street issues.
So
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor? Andy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say with response to
Yes, I have.
Hold on. What was the vote?
Oh, and I don't even know what the motion is, so.
To add a comment about this,
For discussion purposes only.
To add, yes, to add for under the solicitor, discussion purposes only about the streets. And I'll be quick. I just wanted to say that I echo the administrator's comments, and I think there is a middle ground. It's not easy, but I think a good example of that is Lawrence Court, where we can basically try to come up, I do want to say, I think legally it is possible, where these are privately owned streets, we can come up with contractual agreements, which includes the town maintaining them. In some cases, like Lawrence Court, it's to our own benefit because we've got to get to the public part beyond the private part. In other sections, we might consider that we basically contract with the neighbors, the owners of the street, that they're going to pay the town for it. But I do think legally there are middle grounds possible, and I would hope we would accomplish them too.
thank you.
Thank you.
Town clerk, items and announcements, scheduling a special meeting for executive session for discussion of labor issues. There's a memo.
Yes, it's been, I'm just looking for a consensus of council as to when you want to consider that meeting. It should be as a special meeting, because it'll be lengthy, and we'll have the labor attorney. Town administrator put in a,
Tuesday, 12/4 should be Thursday.
so the town administrator has submitted you a,
Now, we have a meeting on the 9th.
we have a meeting on December, I thought it was the 8th. We have it on the 8th.
8th, I'm sorry, 8th.
Right. And we have one on the 22nd, if the council's going to hold that one.
I would prefer a Thursday versus a Tuesday.
How about Thursday, Thursday the 4th or Thursday the 11th? What's good for
Okay.
everybody?
I have the comp plan committee on the 4th.
How about the 11th, Nancy, you have anything?
The 11th, we have the economic development, but that's at 6 o'clock. So if you meet at 7, you may be able,
It's going to be in the back.
oh, that's
We'll
right, it's
start
going to be
here, but then
executive, you'll have
then
to
it'll go
stop.
there. So, what is best for everybody? 12:11?
I can do
Fine with me.
12:11, good for everybody? 12:11.
Okay, so we'll schedule that for 12:11.
Could I request that you put the IAFF on the agenda first and then IBPO second?
Yes.
Because I will have to recuse myself, and I don't want to sit in the lobby for an hour.
This will involve AFSCME and all, right? Yes.
These two.
No, just these two? Okay, sorry.
First, then police.
Thank you.
All right. And then you received a schedule in your packet for,
Next year.
oh, I'm sorry, the December meeting. I just need to know whether or not, because I start to prepare on items already coming through. On the December 22nd meeting, does the council think they're going to be holding that meeting?
Sometimes we don't because it's so close to Christmas, so we could skip that meeting.
I don't have any problem holding the meeting, but if you don't think
I don't
there's
have
work
any
to do, then we
problem.
can stay home.
I'm away the week before, but I'll be back by the 22nd.
Okay, so we're going to plan for a meeting on the 22nd?
Yep.
From here till the turn.
Okay. And then you also have a schedule meetings for 2015, which we have to submit to the Secretary of State's office in December, so if everybody's in agreement with the schedule, we generally hold the third, any months with a fifth Monday. I'll hold it in space in case you want a workshop or a special meeting or anything like that. So they're listed on that schedule. Is there any issue with the schedule before we send it in?
Just a question. Is Rosh Hashanah now a state holiday?
No, although many of the schools are closed.
Oh, okay.
And it seemed, I may or may not be a solicitor then, but it seemed polite, being a significant holiday. It actually starts at sundown on Sunday and ends at sundown on Tuesday. So Tuesday night would not interfere. If you look at your calendar, it'll say Monday and Tuesday, but it ends on Sunday and Tuesday.
And also the public would be able to attend the Tuesday and
Yes, I just have a couple of items.
Do you need a motion on this calendar?
Usually on the first council meeting, we do the governance, council governance rules and regs that we have already, so I'll have them to distribute to you. And then I can distribute them ahead of time if you want to add, and also you're prepared to kind of, to get that out. I'll email them. And the council goals, do you want the goals on there? That's usually put on there. Whereas if everybody submits what their prioritized goals are, if you send them to me, I kind of collate them so that by the meeting, I can have them ready for you. Now, on the gender request, if anything is mentioned during the meeting, we pick it up as a request already. And the council, like the administrator, has the right to put anything on the agenda. I usually try to screen some of what the public wants on there, because we have to be able to manage a meeting. Can't just have meetings go on forever here. However, there is a deadline that I don't always strictly adhere to, but I have to start adhering, because unfortunately, it creates a lot of overtime in my department to get these agendas ready for you. And you should be having the agendas by Thursday. That's under the governance policy. However, generally, you don't get them till Friday morning. But since we scan them and send them to you, it makes it a little bit easier as well. But your hard copies will always be in there. If we're going to be late because of a Monday holiday or something, we email you. But the deadline for the agendas is really at 3 o'clock on Tuesdays. But for the council or the administrator, I won't take it from the public much after that, unless it's really pertinent to get on. But for the council and the administrator, I'm relaxed on that. But you have to be prepared with the backup, which means we have to get the backup copied and everything. So I ask that you please try to adhere to that. But you don't necessarily, generally, there's a template, I'll send it all to the new members, because you may not want the wording I put on it. But if you need to call and just say, Nance, put this item on, or better to email me and say, I want this item on for the next agenda, as long as we can fit it in there. We've never had a council item not be placed on. Sometimes I ask that you wait the following week if it's not really a matter of time for that, because when the agenda fills, I have to start to weed out a little bit. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Lambert? We're going into executive.
I move that we go into a closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, 42465A2, a litigation, McLaughlin versus the town of Tiverton.
All those in